right, welcome back to the Tragic Podcast, episode number 5. We on 5 now, P? We on 5, okay. First of all, shout out to everybody who's actually subscribed. We see the numbers going up little by little. Super appreciate that. P just told me, my super producer P just told me that we have like 100 downloads at this point. Right. So, you know, we're 4 episodes into it, and so far so good. And again, you know, I'm really happy that everybody's caught on to it. So I appreciate the support. And without further ado, I want to give a big shout out to my guest today, who's supporting the podcast by even being here. Yeah. Bay Area comic, very well known around these parts, and honestly, just one of my favorite people to talk to in this game and in general. Really, I've known the man for a few years now. Always has something to bring to the table. Ladies and gentlemen, my guest today, the one and only Chris Riggins. Chris, how you doing, bro?
I'm good, bro. Thanks for having me, Rudy.
I'm really happy you came through because, you know, we tried to set this up last week. It didn't work out and whatnot.
And then Oakland happened.
Yeah. The place where you work at, you know, had some issues. And we talked about that. But I told P, I was like, no, we're going to make sure we do this with Chris because I know Chris, he's always got something powerful to talk about. And that's what this podcast is about. You know what I mean? Right. I bring people on because I want to hear their stories. And like I said in your introduction, you've always been somebody that I considered a good source for anything that has to do about, you know, when it's about breaking shit down and talking about things and profoundly. You just have that type of mind, you know, so I figured you'd be great for the podcast. And now that we're here, when I asked you to come on, you were kind enough to say yes and also tell me what you wanted to talk about, which is your bout and your battles with addiction.
Yes.
And this podcast is about that. This podcast is about bringing people on to tell us about their struggles, their challenges, and ultimately their redemption, you know? So with that being said, Chris, you know, first and foremost, thank you for being here. And tell me where it all started, man.
Oh, wow. It probably all started back in like junior high school, as most people do. You know, you hit your first blunt or whatever. You drink whatever little first drink you have, because the thing about addiction is that we don't understand that we actually are conditioned for addiction in this country. If you think about the way we push alcohol into our homes, you know, beer commercials. When you have a good day, people say, let's have a drink. When you have a bad day, people say, have a drink. When someone dies, let's drink. Someone's born, let's drink. You know, it's you know, you got bottles sitting behind you. You know, it's one of those things where it's socially acceptable. So one of our things in our society is that what happens is we look forward to the moment we can legally drink. That's right. So our addiction,
celebrate it.
Yeah, our addiction starts very young. And one of the things that I learned in recovery is the moment your addiction starts, the moment you start drinking, smoking, doing whatever, and trust me, I'm an advocate for cannabis, so don't think I'm against it. But
we can smell it.
Yeah, exactly. The fact is, the minute you start intoxicating your brain is the minute you kind of stunt your emotional growth when you're young. You know, and one of the things that happens is when you're young and impressionable, your friends are doing it, so you do it, and then you develop habits, and either you build on these habits or you break from these habits, you know, depending on your mind and how you work. Some people have what they call an addictive personality, which is just kind of like addiction can actually be hereditary. It can actually be something that you see.
Is that something that you believe in, though? Like the notion of an addictive personality?
Yeah, I definitely believe it, because, I mean, for me, I see it in the way that I've changed from the addiction from cocaine and alcohol to an addiction to tennis shoes and clothes. You know, now I spend my money on that. So it's one of those things where it's like people who have addictive personalities just have to kind of redirect the addiction to positive addictions. You know, maybe, you know, being addicted to church. I mean, it's, you know, if it gets you off of the substance, then, you know, it's a good addiction in my opinion. So
when you're talking about redirecting, I mean, you're talking about just like transferring that energy from one thing that you just can't stop doing to another thing that you can't stop doing.
Yeah.
Did throughout your journey, I mean, did you ever feel like worried that maybe you would transfer it to something that would continue to harm you? Or were you able to say, okay, no, I'm going to transfer this energy into sneakers and whatnot?
I was able to, because here's the thing, like, you know, beating addiction, you don't necessarily always beat it. You're always going to fight it. You're always addicts. You're always going to have that in you. the thing about it is when you put yourself around people who are supportive of the change, and then you start noticing the circle that was keeping you in the addiction kind of disappears. So then you start seeing other things. So it becomes one of those things where it's easier to change. Now it's not always easy. Everybody has different battles and challenges through it, but it's very easy to change if you have that support group that's supporting the change.
Right. Yeah, because you got to have people around you that actually want to see you do better.
Yeah.
Ironically, though, I'll take my life experience as an example. All my bouts with alcohol throughout all the years that I've been drinking, the first time that I ever had a drink, I was 14 years old.
Yep.
I drank a club mudslide.
Oh, God.
And I was getting fucked up off the club mudslides, bro.
I remember those.
And the funny thing is that I said to myself, okay, I got a couple of friends, they drink beers from time to time. I worked at a liquor store, so I had easy access to if I wanted to really get my hands on some shit. But even in my mind at the time, I was like, okay, I'm gonna start off with some light. So I'm gonna go with this club mudslide. Somehow, some way, because it was chocolate, I felt like, okay, this is like an easy way to start, right? But that's the way that I started my journey with alcohol. And it has been a journey. It's been 20 plus years now.
Yeah.
And it's definitely been a journey. I've had peaks and valleys with that. How did your addiction, how did it really start? Like, when did you start really believing that, okay, you were going down a bad path?
When I started neglecting responsibilities, and when I started, here's the thing about addiction. People know when you're addicted, but you can't call it addiction till you're ready to admit that's an addiction. Yeah. And what it means is you're putting the drug or the substance in front of everything. You know what I mean? Like, for instance, you gotta go to work, but you gotta get high first.
Wow.
So you're willing to be late 30 minutes to go meet the Coke man and get your fix. It's when you are willing to kind of neglect your career to go get high, because the people that are doing the career are not getting high, and so the people that aren't, go get high with them.
Is that what you were doing when you were at your deepest point of addiction? Were you neglecting your career and your responsibilities?
Oh yeah. I'm supposed to be at shows and open mics, but I'm partying with people, trying to get high, trying to get Coke. You know what I mean? Trying to get drunk. Going to shows specifically to get drunk and high, and not necessarily to perform, and then performing drunk and high, and not being consistently good on stage. And
I gotta interject real quick, only because I think this is well known in the industry that we chose, which is stand-up comedy. It's a beautiful art form, and it's a hell of a craft that can really shape a person and shape an individual. But one thing that is very clear, but is not vocalized enough, in my opinion, is how we're basically seduced into a world where if you do well on stage at your craft, your reward in a lot of cases is to get fucked up.
Your pay is to get
fucked up,
I don't know how many shows I get, even now, 2 years sober. I don't know how many people trying to book me, hit me up and say, and it includes 2 drink tickets. And I'm like, I don't like, do you even pay attention? I don't drink no more, but I still get these 2 drinks. And then I've done this thing now where I'm like, okay, well, how about you convert them 2 drink tickets to more money from my motherfucking pay?
Straight up.
And throw that on there.
What's each drink cost? About $7? Let me get at least $14.
Throw 14 more on there. You know what I'm saying? Okay, throw the tip on there too. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But like, yeah, it's like, it's, this industry is one of the hardest industries, I believe, to quit. Drinking, because it's so accessible, it's so readily, and it's for things like for comedy clubs, bars and shit, giving you a drink is way cheaper than giving you money.
Absolutely.
It's way easier for them to pour you a shot than it is for them to write you a check.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that's the other thing about it. It becomes sort of like the crutch.
And even the places where we hang out at when we're at the club is where? At the bar.
At the bar.
You hang. I mean, that's literally like we're designated. That's our designated area. It's to go chill at the bar. So it kind of ties in with what you started off with the fact that in America, like, alcohol is celebrated. Mm-hmm. I mean, we, like you said, we celebrate the fact that
around the world,
the whole world. I mean, in America, for example, we have a city, Las Vegas, where you're supposed to go to when you turn 21, because you could get legally fucked up.
And they let you walk around with it.
They let you walk around with
streets, and they let you walk around with guns too. Oh my God. It's America utopia over there.
Real talk, though.
It's just, because alcohol is big business, because they learned this during Prohibition. When they said you can't drink, everybody still found a way to drink, and they realized this is a $1 billion business. So these alcohol people are like cigarette people, you know. They're pushing it. They're saying, hey, you know, you need this. This is what makes life better. And for so many people I hear that want to quit, they can't because they're caught up in that propaganda of this makes life better. I need this, you know.
This is like socially acceptable.
Yeah.
So it's okay.
Yeah.
I can get fucked up. I can get intoxicated and be on one.
Yeah.
And there's no judgment here because everybody's doing it.
Everybody's doing it.
So it sounds like that, you know, your the beginning of your journey was like very similar to a lot of ours, you know, when it comes, especially as alcohol being the precursor to everything else. At what point though did you make a transition? And I'm not saying that you went directly from alcohol to cocaine, but was there a transition that maybe sent you into a different substance? And when was it? Like, why did you make that leap?
Well, you know, I was a raver, a party kid, dancer, and all that stuff. So I always, you know, fuck with Molly and ecstasy and, you know, shrooms and stuff like that. And then I got divorced. You know, I had a messy divorce, so I kind of started looking for stronger things. So cocaine was there, you know, it was always there, but it presented itself more because I started hanging out with people that sold it and people that had more access to it. So really, my access to cocaine changed. Therefore, it became more of a player in the game. And once you start doing that, everything else just falls into place. So you're doing that, you're doing acid. You're like, I mean, any given night, you're doing a gram of cocaine, and then you're doing, you know, a half tab of acid, and, you know, some Molly if you find some. Then you're smoking a gang of weed, and you're drinking a vat of alcohol. So, you know, all that adds up. But the cocaine is the one that's the strongest. It's the one that makes you want it the most. It's the one that's going to say, hey, go get more. Yeah. You know.
Did you have because this is one thing that I hear from a lot of people when they try cocaine for the first time. Did you, and myself included, did you have like a mindset before the cocaine where you were like, I'll never do that because I'll never play with my nose. I'll never give that a try. Or was it always open? It was always an opportunity.
I've always been one of those open, free drug people. Like, fuck it, try it. I mean, I'm not gonna do the crack, but hey, I'll try anything once. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it was one of those things where when you have the light addiction, which is the one that most people have, you know, whereas, you know, just the social addiction where, you know, like that, you're like down to try anything, you know, and then you start trying it, you know, and you don't want to seem uncool, you know what I mean? And then on top of that, being on other drugs, it does fuck with you, you know. Alcohol is definitely a depressant. It's definitely something that when you're on it, you feel you're on top of the world. When you're off it, you feel like you're at the bottom. So it's one of those things that it fucks with your emotions. So then you definitely want to try something else. You definitely are down to do it. And then you're in a room full of people doing it. You're like, well, fuck it, I'll do something too. Yeah. You know, especially when you get in a situation where you're hanging out with people who have it readily available, and it's not like one of those things where we got to piece together to get an 8-ball. It's like, no, I got a whole here you take this ounce and you take this ounce, and this is your cocaine for the night. Yeah, we're going out for the night. This is your cocaine. This is your cocaine. Here's my cocaine. Oh, don't worry, we have a brick at the house. Yeah, not because we sell coke. We just got it. We can afford to buy coke like that, and we figure we're going to do coke. Let's just do it like that. Yeah. And so that, you know, becomes a thing, because also when you get better coke, then you're like, oh,
like, what the fuck are we doing?
Amazing.
Like, let's keep this shit rolling.
Oh my god!
Next thing you know, you got 8 different sneakers underneath the bathroom stall. You know what I'm saying? It's like you just see people just chilling in the bathroom stall.
It was so weird when I got sober, going to the bathroom and not going with a bunch of people. It's like, doing this by myself, guys. Going to the bathroom by myself.
It's like one person per stall, please.
I just walked in the stall with somebody like, oh. You just
like, don't I'll turn around. Don't worry about it.
I'm sorry, man. This is forced habit, you know.
So you were talking about, you mentioned your divorce. And, you know, I mean, obviously, like that seems to be like a very common ground when it comes to people getting addicted to something or really jumping into a substance. You know, you have some sort of like emotional turmoil. What were you seeking out after that divorce? Or was it because of the divorce that you were seeking something out? But what were you seeking out that made you turn to cocaine and like other substances?
Validation, love, you know, not dealing with the more or less not dealing with the actual pain, not dealing with the actual trauma, not dealing with the actual situation. It was easier to numb and escape than to face and go through and then get better and heal and come out a different person. So it was like it was an escape. It was just easier to just not deal with it.
How would you describe like that pain and that trauma that you were going through?
Oh, it's torture. It's like, you know, here's the thing. People always talk about grieving someone that dies, right? But when you lose somebody out your life through divorce or breakup or anything, or like friendship, whatever, that also needs grieving too. You have to grieve the loss of that. And one of the things that definitely makes it hard is, you know, the feeling, it feels like grief. You go through the stages of grief. You go through the anger. You go through the sadness. You go through the blame. You go through the self-pity. You go through denial. You go through all these stages, and it's like when someone dies. It happens at any time of the day. It doesn't have a specific time length. There's not going to be a moment where you're not like sitting there and it can't just pop in your head and you're like, oh, damn, that's fucking sucks, you know? Yeah. And but when you're on drugs, you're not able to really deal with the emotion. You know what I mean? You're just numbing yourself to emotion. So then what happens is when the numbing wears off, all the emotion is still there. And then you got the emotion from not having the numbing. And then it just adds to a whole bunch of, it's like a perfect storm of just things going on in your head and your body that are not good. Yeah. You know, things that if they happen separately, you can deal with it. Like, okay. You know, I'm a little high right now, I can deal with that. All right, I'm a little sad right now, I can deal with that. But when you're sad, high, depressed, you know, grieving, you know, doing all this at the same time, it's very, very stressful.
It's funny that you mentioned, you know, the death being a reason as to why people go through all the stages of emotion that you just described. When my cousin Oscar, he's right behind me right there in that picture, when he died back in June, it was very abrupt and very just shocking death. I remember telling myself, I said, you know, the day of his funeral and the day after, I'm going to get drunk. Mm-hmm. I'm going to get fucked up. And nobody could tell me nothing. Nobody could say shit to me. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I made that decision in my mind. It was a very conscious and very, it was a decision full of conviction. There was nobody that was gonna tell me otherwise. How many times did you make that decision to say, okay, you know what, I'm going through some shit and I need to get fucked up and do what I want to do?
Well, pretty much every time, because I was already addicted to drugs. I was already doing a lot of Molly, doing a lot of acid and stuff. You know, I was already doing, you know, psychedelics heavily. Like, I mean, you know, Molly was cheap enough to where I could buy enough Molly where I could, you know, like I had this guy who had these tabs that were like big enough where I could break the tab open, take a little bit every night. And I'd have that tab for a week and a half, and then I'd buy 3 of those. So for a whole month, I got Molly every weekend. So anytime I didn't have anything else, I could just hit the Molly. But like you, actually, the same year I got divorced, a few months before that, I lost my best friend. So, you know, it was that, and it was like, you know, fuck it, let's get fucked up. Yeah. And instead of that, just tomorrow, let's get fucked up, it was like, let's just stay fucked up. Let's just stay fucked up. And then also, you know, what fueled it a little bit was this comedy, I want to say it's a myth, or it's this stereotype, or it's you know, it happens, it's true, but that whole mentality that comedians have to be a little sad and have to be high and drunk and going through some shit to be good was another catalyst for not wanting to get clean. It was like, well, shit, this is what I'm supposed to be like. I
mean, speak on that for a second though, Chris, because I agree with you, man. That's definitely like something that looms over us. And not just for comics, I would even be willing to say that notion is extended out to artists in general. Yeah. You know, that you have to have some sort of grief or some sort of pain, something that you could reflect on, something that you could bounce off of in order to make this great art. Now, I'd be lying if I told you that, you know, some of my best work and some of the best things that I wrote or some of the most profound things that I spoke didn't come from a place of pain. I'd be lying if I said that, you know, but do you feel like that's something that needs to be eradicated, that notion? Should that change, or is there some truth behind that?
It's truth behind it. I mean, it's not that it's not the case. It's just not the case for every comedian. Every comedian isn't, you know, a broken, you know, dejected person. A lot of comedians are well-adjusted human beings that are just funny as fuck. And I think the mentality is, you know, like it's almost like the myth that comedians are suckers, are weak and can't fight, and people think because we funny, you know, it's like, you don't understand. Comedy saved a lot lot of these motherfuckers' lives from the
up.
street. So, you
Straight
know,
up.
a lot of these comedians are thugs that tell jokes, and but they're good at that too. So it's like the mentality that, you know, I think some comedians have is that, yeah, we need to be sad. You have to have some kind of pain. It's kind of like, you know, how, you know, rappers kind of have this mentality that, you know, you got to come from the mud to make it. And like, if you're not a street rapper, then somehow you're this kind of rapper. It's like, no, you rap. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
With comedians, if you're funny, you're funny. And I don't think you should have to be in any certain mindset. Like, everybody shouldn't have to be that way. You know, I understand it because, you know, I was really there. And the thing is, I think also there's a lot of comedians who are really in pain. And then those are the ones that don't talk about it enough. Like, that's the thing that we don't get. Like, the comedians that go on stage and talk about how sad they are, how fucked up their life is, 9 times out of 10, they're not really like that off stage. But it's the comedians that go up there and say, life is great and blah, and have all these really, you know, really great jokes, and they protrude this very positive and I'm always okay mindset. Those are the ones that often are feeling the worst.
Yeah.
You know, and I can attest because I've been that comedian. You know what I'm saying? I've been that comedian where it's like, you don't know Chris is fucking going home and just being depressed as fucking contemplating suicide. You don't know this.
Right.
Because when I'm around y'all, I'm like, what's up? Whoa, because nobody cares. And that's the mentality you have. And then, you know, it also comes from a place of like, you know, people that appear well-adjusted don't get checked on.
That's real.
And it starts kind of like if you think about school. Like if you think about your elementary school, the kids that got the most attention were the kids who were the very smartest, the 1%, and then the other 10% that were just terrible. They were just the worst kids. They got all the attention. All the kids in the middle, because they just seemed like they were holding steady.
Right.
Like, you seem like you're doing good, so you don't check on them. But when you get this comedian that goes on stage and is always sad, and then you start checking on them, are you okay? It's like, no, that motherfucker's just telling jokes.
Yeah.
That's a stage persona. But it's the motherfucker that is helping everybody out, that's supporting everybody else that you need to check on, because while they are very supportive and helpful, they're taking on a lot of trauma from people, because people then start saying, well, I'm going through something. Let me call this person and talk to them about it.
Yeah.
And then that person, because they're compassionate and they're empathetic, they listen to you and they feel bad for you because like, fuck, you're really going through some shit.
And they haven't fallen apart just yet. They're like,
Yeah.
well, I still got some empathy to give.
Yeah. Yeah.
There it is. They're that 70% that you're talking about in that classroom.
Yeah.
That gets overlooked.
Yeah.
And the thing, you know, it's interesting that you bring that up, man, because I've known you for a long time in the comedy community, and we become friends over the years. And yes, you're absolutely right. You know, when you were going through your shit, you couldn't have convinced me of that.
Yeah.
Because I always saw you so well put together at the shows. Because here's the thing, as comics, the one thing that we base everything off of is, well, how did he do on stage?
Yes.
I mean, yeah, you telling me all this shit, and I hear all this shit, but how did he do on stage? And because of your ability to perform and just your natural gifts on stage, a person like myself would have never thought anything about that.
It's because we're conditioned to see different things. We're different issues. We're conditioned to see depressed as, you know, disheveled in the bathroom, shower crying, laying on, you know, that's depressed. Right. The image of an addict is the person on the streets, you know, asking you for some change just to get some crack, you know what I mean, or breaking in your car. That's the image of an addict. It's never the dude that you see on stage telling jokes and laughing and joking and having a good time. And, you know, also, you know, with addiction is like, you don't tell everybody because you don't know how everybody's going to react, and you don't know if they party. You know, it's like, you know, and then the people that do party with you, they don't give a fuck about your addiction. They just want to do some coke.
Yeah.
They just want to do some drugs, you know, and there are people who can do drugs Friday through Sunday and then touch nothing all week. Like I have friends who can do a whole week of cocaine and then won't touch it for a year. Won't even look at it. Won't even think about it. And they'll have it. Will still have it, but won't touch it. And I'm like, wow, that's
how
like,
how you hanging on to all this coke, man?
We having Nino Brown parties every night in my house.
It's Thursday. Let's go.
Let's get blown. You know, so it's crazy, you know. It's like you hide it from a lot of people.
Yeah.
And then you hide it because it's also you're hiding the depression.
Yeah.
You're hiding all the sadness. You're hiding all the grief. So nobody knows, nobody sees, and nobody asks because everybody else is dealing with their own shit too.
Well, you're talking about hiding all this stuff, which I totally agree with. You know, I mean, I know I've known so many people that have gone through something similar, where one of the main factors is to hide it, myself included. Like sometimes when I've had my troubles with alcohol, where I'm just like, I know I'm just drinking too much, like I'm thinking to myself like, damn, like I can't be getting fucked up in front of these people. Because I know that this is they're gonna judge me. I'm gonna lose some sort of like social credit in their eyes. You know what I mean? Like I'm doing too much. I gotta,
There's too many cameras around now.
There's too many cameras. You know what I'm saying? Motherfuckers know what's going on at all times. So it's like I gotta do my shit off to myself. And sometimes you find refuge with certain groups. Like, okay, I can go kick it with these people and do what the fuck I want to do because I'm not gonna get any judgment. How did your addiction to cocaine and alcohol, how did it change the way that you maneuvered amongst your friends, your family, like people that actually matter to you?
Well, you distance yourself from anybody that's going to tell you to stop. You distance yourself from anybody that doesn't do it or somebody that might look at you weird. Like you just distance yourself because they don't do it. So you go over here with these people who do it. And we're all over here fighting addiction. We're all over here in the middle of in different varying stages of our addictions. So we're just having a great old addicted time over here, and we don't even think about those people. So we avoid talking to those people. We avoid calling them. We avoid visiting them. We avoid seeing them. You see them as little as possible, but they know.
Right.
Because when they do see you, they either see you coming down or they see you high on top of the mountain. So it's kind of like, they know because like, this is not the person I knew before. And you're not around them because they're going to say, hey, what the fuck's going on with your nose?
Yeah.
Why you what's going on with you? Why are you acting like this? And you don't want that.
Did you have people in your life in particular that would mention it to you that would really move you when they would bring it up? Because I'm sure there was plenty of people that may or may not have brought it up, but you didn't care anyways what they thought. But I know you're a father, and you have a circle of people around you that I'm imagining because they're your friends, they would actually care about your well-being. Was there anybody in particular that would bring it up that would make you stop and think about what you're doing? You don't have to name any names.
No, I name her. No, it's good. It's good. She's if I don't say her name, she'll be like, yeah, man. My girl Corey, she was really like, hey, why don't you go to get some rehab? Why don't you go get some recovery? Why don't you go get clean? Why don't you stop doing cocaine? And it was, I think maybe the issue was they never stopped because she was never like, look, go stop doing cocaine or you ain't getting no more pussy. It was more like.
The power of the pussy, though.
Right. It was more like, it's like, hey, you should stop. Hey, why don't you stop? Hey, you should, do you want to go to a meeting? Like she actually took me to my first meeting. Like it was just kind of like, she was like, she didn't force me, and then she just said, do you want to go to a meeting? And I did. And it was one of those things I knew I was at the point where I needed to break free of that. Yeah. I needed to make some sort of change. So it was kind of like, okay, I'll go to the meeting. It still took another 3 months to really, get clean. Yeah. I still went and did cocaine that night after the meeting, but, I went to the meeting with her, and I credited her for that and trying to, get me going. But yeah, she was, and then that led me to, our split, and because I was doing other devious things. I mean, well, no, I mean, kind of touch on that because I know that when I'm in my bag, so to speak, I'll do some devious shit. Oh yeah.
What I mean?
Because you don't have that inhibitor. You don't have those walls of reason where it's like, look, man, you committed to be with somebody. Yeah. You don't need this extra pussy out here. And you're thinking, and the cocaine's like, nah, nigga, we need this pussy. But at the same time, the cocaine's going to make your dick limp. So you're like, come on.
It's great in theory.
Is it really cheating now? Come on, bro.
I mean, babe, I didn't do nothing. I couldn't even get it up.
I couldn't, like I didn't, I'm shoving it in like Ron Jeremy.
It's just a wet noodle in this motherfucker. I mean, yeah, I feel like, it changes who we are, especially in those moments, it changes our essence. Yes. What big changes did you notice about your essence when you were at the height, or I should say at the deepest part of your addiction?
I didn't care about seeing my kids. It was a thing where I was between here and LA, and I was living in LA. I had a place in LA, but I was always in the Bay Area because I was getting staged, and it just is where I'm from, you know what I mean? And it was and finally I moved back here, and I was the whole time when I came here, I would sleep at my ex's house because I wanted to be around the kids, you know, or it was so I could see the kids. But I didn't like being there because she was still there. So it was a very awkward situation. So my thing was I would, you know, just disappear until the weekend and come back and then I'd be asleep the whole time I'm with them because I'm coming down, and so I'm not interacting with them.
Yeah.
And then it's like, well, fuck it, I don't even want to. So I'm sleeping in my car, you know, all day somewhere in a parking lot because I'm just too high and I don't want them to see that. But then by the time I get home, they're asleep, and then I gotta go high again. So it's terrible. You know what I'm saying? When I just didn't really give a fuck about the time I spent with my kids. So that's when I was like, okay, this is bullshit.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm imagining that like you start realizing this is bullshit, like when you're coming down, or, I mean, was it, you know, sometimes I know like sometimes when I'm drinking and when I'm like on my third or fourth shot and I'm headed up, I'm on my way there. I know I'm on my way there, but there is still like a faint voice in the back of my head that's like, this is wrong, bro.
You can stop right now.
You can stop right now, bro. Like we can't erase everything you just did, but you can stop right now.
You haven't done the worst yet.
Most times I say, nah, fuck that. I'll be like, shut the fuck up. I'll see you on the way back down. You know what I mean? But did you have that experience where you were like, okay, while you were doing it, did you think to yourself like, fuck, man, I could really just put this down right now and just save myself the grief?
Here's the thing, yeah. But the issue with addiction is like when you start having that thought, you don't put it down, you start feeling bad. You're like, well, I'm a fucking addict. I'm a piece of shit.
That's
I
real.
might as well just kill myself and get higher. Can I OD? Can I try to OD? And you're going for gold. You know what I mean? So it becomes a thing where like, you do more to cover up that thought. If you're getting high and you realize that's happening, you're like, okay, well, this is not a thought I want to have. What else can I do to make me forget this? Oh, let's do some more of this. Let's do some more of that. Let's add this in. You know, it just becomes a whole thing where you're trying to, again, numb and disassociate with the reality.
Can you describe yourself like when you reached what they call rock bottom? I know it's such a cliche term and I've heard it many times. You know what I'm saying? I don't know if that's even the right term anymore, but I mean, how would you describe yourself at the depths of your addiction?
Just terrible to be around. It was not fun. It's hard right now to explain it because I'm far enough away from it where I don't even think about it anymore. But it was definitely one of those moments where you just like, suicidal thoughts daily. You know, thoughts of how to do it. You know, purchasing of things to do it with. You know,
what were some ideas?
Pills. Gun in the mouth. All those. Slit in the wrist, but that one always made me squirm. I don't know. It's like, how you gonna kill yourself? And you think, okay, I'm gonna do it.
Because I gotta actually look at it. But gun in mouth seemed to be okay though.
Quick.
All right.
They see the mess. I don't see shit.
I mean, no, that's interesting. Interesting that you say that though, because like, I mean, for those of us that have had suicidal thoughts or at least imagined what it would be like if we were to take our own life. I mean, there does come a point where you say to yourself, okay, what would be the best way to do it?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And sometimes that
way to do it.
Sometimes it's about what's quicker. Sometimes it's about what's cleaner. And sometimes it's about what's going to be less terrifying for the person that finds me.
Yeah, like I was about one night I was having thoughts and it was like my daughters were there and that's what stopped me because it's like I don't want them to wake up and find me.
Right.
Let me wait till they go to their grandparents' house or something so their mom can find me. Fuck her.
Let her carry that.
Let her carry that. No, but that's a selfish thought and I don't want her to go through that either because what affects her affects my kids ultimately. So
absolutely. So your kids, I'm imagining that may have been one of the guiding lights for your recovery. What other people like influenced you? Did you have somebody who maybe said, okay, look, man, it's time to stop, or did you take it all upon yourself?
It was definitely people like my man Jabir basically kind of came and parked outside of my house and said, I'm not leaving till you come downstairs and we're going to go to this recovery program. Yeah. And then he drove me there and he sat outside until I had a meeting in there because he was like, you're not going to sneak out and leave. He's like, no, you're. And then, my boy Seth from New York, he's Brooklyn all day. Yeah. Threatened my life several times. Really? If you're not, he literally said, if I get to Cali and I find any cocaine on you, I'm gonna beat your ass all up and down the state of California.
Wow.
And it's like,
that's an ass whipping up the I-5.
Right? And he's old school Brooklyn. He's not playing. He stabs people. He's not fucking playing. So, it's having people like that who are really like, you got to have the soft touch, and then you got to have those people that are willing to bust your skull.
I mean, what do you think worked better with you though? Because I mean, everybody's different, and I respect the soft touch and the harsh touch, because I do believe that in a lot of aspects in our life, like, it's necessary. But what worked best with you?
The harsh touch.
The harsh touch. Nobody want to get their ass up on the freeway, man.
I mean, it's just, it's not even really what they did. It's kind of what I was just ready to do.
Yeah.
Because I guess the thing, at the end of the day, you have to be ready to make the decision yourself.
Yeah.
Like, people, like the show Intervention, people, if you look at the epilogue after that show, people relapse a lot when they're forced to go into recovery. When you say, I'm going to take away your home, I'm going to take away all your family connections, we're not going to talk to you, we're going to cut you off. Yeah, a person will say, okay, I'll go to rehab. But they may not go with the right mindset, or they don't go in there and get the full, because they're just doing it to keep a roof over their head.
Right.
Whereas when you really want to do it, when you're just looking at your circumstance, you realize, okay, if I don't get shit together, shit's going to go bad really fast. Because what happened was my ex just bought a house and moved out of the place that she was living in, which has my name on the lease still. So I just moved in, took over, and I realized when she's gone, I have to pay this rent.
Yeah.
And, I wouldn't have the person to go half, or, in my case, whole. She, was paying the rent for a long time by herself because she was working. I was an artist or a stay-home dad, and then a drug addict for a minute. So, it's a lot that she paid. So I had to do something, because I was like, I can't lose my place to live with my kids.
Yeah.
So I had to, make some decisions, and, it's crazy,
We were talking earlier about how, there's like this emptiness, there's this void, or there's some sort of trauma or something, emotional turmoil that you're going through that leads a lot of us to substances, It could be alcohol, could be weed, it could be cocaine, whatever.
Not weed. Weed is not addictive.
Okay. No. Speak on that, because honestly, I could not agree with you more. But I know a lot of people are because earlier we were talking about how you could shift your addictions from cocaine to sneakers. I mean, what makes weed so different in your mind?
Because your body naturally accepts weed. So everybody is born with an endocannabinoid system. So basically, your endocannabinoid system is the reason why CBD can heal you.
Yeah.
So like, if you have pain, the reason why CBD works is because your body is equipped to accept CBD as a healing agent.
How we see? I feel that. How are we gonna get? And I know there's a real push for this already, but how are we gonna get people to understand, bro? Like that weed is not here to hurt you the way all this other shit is.
Capitalism makes that very hard.
Yeah.
Because the whole thing that fucked weed up was the capitalism of the Hearst family, who didn't want to lose the power of the paper they were making. They had trees. They were making all the paper. They knew that if hemp and all that stuff became legal, that hemp is a much better fiber. It's more sustainable. It's easier to grow. It helps the ground. I mean, it's basically cannabis basically helps the planet. Yes. So, but you can't regulate it like that, because, people, you can own a redwood forest, but redwoods don't grow everywhere, or these trees don't, what I'm saying? Yeah. The trees that make paper don't grow everywhere. Whereas you can grow weed any fucking where, and someone grow their own hemp and make their own this and their own that. So it was a smear campaign that happened long enough to build a stigma big enough to where it's going to take a longer campaign to break it down.
That's incredible that in 2021 we're still dealing with that campaign, though. Because that started 100 years ago, maybe longer than that.
Yeah,
and we're still dealing with the remnants of it today.
And there's the racist aspect of it.
Right,
you know what I mean?
Right.
They the whole.
There's a reason it's called marijuana.
Yeah,
it was completely. It came from an ethnic angle.
Yeah, they were trying to
demonize Mexicans.
Yeah, and here's the thing: there's even a debate within the cannabis industry about some Latino, some Mexican people are like, yo, we like to call it marijuana because it kind of is like us saying nigga. It's kind of like reclaiming that. Like
Right.
we're not gonna use that as a stigma anymore. It's marijuana. That's what we call it. That's what we're gonna call it. Okay.
Right.
And then there are Latinos who are like, nah, that shit's racist. Let's call it cannabis or weed or whatever. But we're not gonna use that word. So it's an ongoing debate within that. But there's always something to debate with it, but it's just, it comes down to capitalist interest.
Yeah.
When they figure out how they can monopolize, we wish they kind of have. They're doing it because, local small growers who have been providing cannabis to people for years are now getting pushed out. Black and brown people are not able to get into the industry because, of course, we don't have the disposable income and the wealth, the generational wealth that white people have
to get it going.
You know what I mean? So it's a lot of things going on in the cannabis industry that lead to the stigma still being around because we're still just trying to, fight to get certain people out of jail for it. You know what I mean?
Right.
So
I mean, just like you were talking about earlier about the way that alcohol is celebrated in America and around the world. I mean, if you don't see the connection between capitalism and either the celebration or the demonization of a certain substance, then I mean, you're just not paying attention.
Yeah,
you're just not paying attention to what's going on. Earlier, we were talking about how there's this emptiness within us sometimes that kind of leads us and prompts us to start dabbling in certain substances. And now that you're in recovery, now that you said you're 2 years into recovery.
2 years.
I got to ask, that emptiness that you were trying to fill, that void you were trying to fill, do you still carry that? And if so, I mean, how do you deal with it now? Like, what's your mindset now that you're 2 years into your recovery?
Time to time, I deal with it. Here's the thing. The thing with depression and sadness is it never goes away. It just comes and goes, And the thing is, when you're using substances to deal with those things, you're not really dealing with it. You're numbing and you're deflecting. You're trying to avoid it. But the thing about it is, when you're done being high, it's still there.
Yeah.
So what you do is you learn different ways to cope with it. So now I chant. I do Buddhist chants in the morning. I stretch. I work out. I try to one thing that, I do therapy. One thing that I've learned in therapy is, you got to feel your feels. So like when you're sad, our natural reaction is to run away. Our natural reaction is like, no, I don't want to feel this. This is not fun. I don't like this. Let me go away.
Right.
And when you do that, it chases you. And then eventually it's going to catch up to you, and it can catch up to you in the wrong place. So the best thing to do is to sit with it.
Nobody's that fast.
Yeah. Sit with it. Feel it. If you got to cry, cry. If you got to scream, scream. If you got to get it out of that moment. Because then what happens is after you let that out, then you start seeing, okay, I still got shit to do today.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And
life continues to be there.
Yeah. Sometimes I'm sitting in my apartment now, and then I'm going through a moment. I look up at the roof above my head and I say, wait a minute, I got a place to sleep. I got a pretty comfortable bed. Oh wait, I got all these sneakers. I can afford to pay my rent, buy clothes that I like, do things for my kids. I don't have money to travel the world yet, but I have to look at what I do have. And those are the things you do. You kind of look at the things, and it's like the whole saying, one day at a time, goes for pretty much everything. Like not just addiction, but depression.
Real.
One day at a time. Today I'm depressed, but tomorrow I can pull out of this. Because tomorrow, you know what I got to do tomorrow? I'm going to meet up with some friends. We're having lunch, and I can't wait.
Right.
You know what I mean? Or tomorrow my kids come over. Tomorrow I get to wake up and chant, and I get to work out. Or tomorrow I get to smoke some more weed. It's all about, finding those things that you can latch on to, that you can pull yourself forward one more day.
Is it fair to say that all these things that you're listing, where it seems like the common theme is gratitude, is it fair to say that a shift in your mindset and deliberately trying to be more grateful, is it fair to say that has helped you along the way?
I wouldn't say deliberately being more grateful, because I've always been a grateful person. I think what it is actually being grateful and understanding it. More or less, yes, I'm always grateful for things, but now really appreciating the gratefulness. Like, oh, you know what? This is a good thing. It is okay to be grateful, and it's also okay to tell people, nah, I'm not feeling you.
Yeah, that's real. Yeah, so, that's a good point, Chris, because I feel like I feel like we always talk about being grateful, always talk about appreciating. But I do think that sometimes, we don't know how to appreciate things. It sounds like a good idea, but a lot of us don't know how to put it into practice. And what you just said right now, I think makes a lot of sense. You got to be honest.
Yeah.
If you ain't feeling somebody, you got to be honest about that.
And here's the thing. People don't know how to take compliments either.
Right.
That was a big issue of mine because I didn't see myself as someone worthy of compliments. So therefore, when someone compliment me, I'm like, yeah, nah.
Right.
Nah. That was a great set. It's all right. All that, and in my mind, I'm thinking I'm being humble, but really what I'm doing is I'm actually pushing myself further down because instead of taking this praise that I'm getting, saying, yeah, I did that. Cool. Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Right.
I'm trying to diminish myself even in that moment. And, somebody had to tell me like, bro, just take the fucking compliment.
You got to take it, bro. No. I'm happy you mentioned the word humble. Because I've always had this notion that's always kind of loomed over my life, especially in maybe the last 10, 15 years of my life, when I really kind of grown into the person that I am. A lot of people mistake humility for meekness. You understand what I'm saying? And it's not their fault, because I understand that for a lot of people, the notion of humility is very much attached to, I don't want attention. Nobody praise me. Nobody tell me how good I am. The best way for me to stay in people's good graces is to never celebrate me.
Yes.
We believe that.
Yeah.
But that's not real humility. Humility is honesty.
Yes.
If you do something well and somebody points it out, humility is not denying that truth.
Yeah.
Humility is accepting that and being grateful and being appreciative of the fact that they noticed that. You ain't got to go around, you ain't got to post it on Facebook and be like, oh man, yes, such and such told me this and now I'm the shit. I mean, it's not that. It's just being honest and open enough to receive a truth.
Yeah. Or posting your wins and your losses. If you're going to post your wins and your losses. Like me personally, I hate the word humble. I hate when motherfuckers tell somebody to be humble, because usually it's somebody outside of somebody else telling somebody not to be proud of themselves.
Right.
That's what I feel when people say they need to be humble.
Yeah. A misrepresentation of the word. Yeah, and I think that's a very common thing.
Like that sister Sha'Carri Richardson, right? Mm-hmm. People telling her to be humble because she lost a race. Bitch, she's still the number 5 runner in the world, nigga. Right, in the world, nigga. You think she gonna win every fucking? No, when she had the right attitude, fuck it, I lost, let's go.
Y'all lucky she's not posting that every day.
Right? And it's like, come on, I'm sorry. It's like the way I got rid of the whole humble mindset is when I met a couple of MMA fighters. And when you hang around fighters, there is something about them that you have to allow them to be asshole-ish. Not asshole-ish. You have to allow them to have bravado.
Right.
Because you're going to take your body and go into a ring with another person with their body, and you guys are going to use your bodies as weapons against each other to win.
Yeah.
Not to kill each other to win, but you could kill each other. You could potentially hit him in the head, hit him in his temple, kill him.
Yeah.
You could.
But you're two willing participants in this.
You're two willing participants. And I see when I see fighters talking shit to each other, I don't see them being cocky and all this. I see them respecting each other in a sense of, this is how this is done.
Absolutely.
We do this to rile each other up. We go in the ring, we knock it out, and then at the end, we hug.
Yeah.
Like the Usman, what's that white boy's name? Colby Covington.
Yeah.
Kobe, the first fight, Kobe was on that MAGA shit. He was talking all that craziness, and Usman went out and broke his jaw.
Straight up.
You know what I mean? There was no respect there. Mm-hmm. This last fight, they slugged it out. Usman beat him, but he didn't knock him out, but they slugged it out. And at the end, they shook hands and hugged, and it was a respect thing. And the thing about that, as I saw, was you got to talk shit on yourself. Mm-hmm. You got to brag. You got to toot your horn. You have to say, hey, sometimes I'm the shit. I know there are other people that are the shit too, but sometimes I'm the shit.
Straight up.
Me saying I'm the shit does not say that you're not the shit. Like I said on Facebook a couple months ago, I said, I'm the best comedic host in the Bay Area.
I read that.
Motherfuckers was like, what about this one? What about this one?
Right.
I'm like, I never said they weren't.
Yeah.
I never said they weren't the best. I never said they weren't good.
Yeah.
Tony Sparks is the Godfather. Mm-hmm. So that's a whole nother title. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I got what I got from him. I learned by watching him. So he even understood what I was saying. He wasn't like, oh, what about me? He understood. He was like, speak your shit, young man.
Straight up.
You got to talk your shit. And that's one thing I learned coming out of addiction is you got to talk your shit sometimes.
Yeah.
And there's a difference between talking your shit and being an asshole.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Celebrating yourself when you're worthy of it and when you feel like you're doing the right things and putting forth the right effort is not the same as arrogance.
Like this, when I'm going up there on that stage that I'm hosting, and every time I'm coming off the stage, people are saying, man, he should have had you do the whole damn show.
Yeah.
People saying your energy was amazing. The whole show, you kept the energy going. I love the other comedians, but you kept the energy. Like when I hosted the Chase Center comedy shit outside, right?
Yeah.
It's an awkward thing to do comedy in this big environment. It's like 1,500 people outside of Flint Chase Center, and it's no real connection. It's weird,
right?
And to keep
so
the
much shit
energy
going
up
on.
And keep people and notice people over there and talk to them and talk to people in the back and do all this. That takes a lot. That's not just going up there and telling jokes. That's going up there calculating what jokes you're going to tell based on who's in the audience and how they're going to respond, and trying to get the room to accept whatever set the person behind you is going to do. So, yeah, I can say that I'm the best comedic host in the Bay. And when I say comedic, I don't mean just comedy. I mean, I'm hosting Wu-Tang at the Coliseum.
Right.
I'm hosting at the Independent. I'm hosting Most Def, Tyler. I'm going on the road with Tyler. I am a host.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying that to say nobody else is good. I'm not saying that nobody else can be the best. Nobody else can't feel that they're the best. I'm saying I'm the best in my mind.
Yeah. And you can't let the naysayers or the people who may have something to say about your claims about yourself, you can't let them deter you from that, because the truth is that at the end of the day, like many things in life, they're looking at the immediate. You're looking at the big picture. You're zooming out. They're focused in.
Yeah.
And that causes a lot of confusion amongst, human beings a lot of the time. You hear me say something, you see me give off a certain type of energy, but you're not understanding where it's coming from. You don't understand that I'm looking at the big picture. I'm looking at something else. You're just focused on these few words that were laid out in front of you. I love that whole mentality, man, because the notion about humility, I mean, that's a whole nother podcast that I could jump into, because that notion, what you're touching on right there, really saved my life too. You know what I mean? It really it allowed me to be myself in a way that I had never imagined before. And it made me better. It made me a better person once I understood what humility really was.
Yes.
It made me a better person. It made me a more honest person with myself and with other people. So I'm really glad you touched on that. I want to ask you to do something for me. We've talked about a lot of stuff in regards to your addiction and your story. Give me 3 words to describe yourself during your addiction, and then 3 words to describe yourself now that you're on the other side of it.
Oh, wow. Lost, hurt, and I don't want to say hopeless, but what's something less than hopeless?
Something less than hopeless? Uncertain?
Hope. What's
like looking for hope.
Looking for hope.
Yeah.
I guess whatever word that says. And after, it's just,
Well, what was the hope that you felt like you were missing in your life at the time?
The hope to live. I didn't see old age. I saw like, okay, this is gonna end pretty soon.
Yeah.
So who gives a fuck? Who gives a fuck what I do? Just gives a fuck how I live, because this is probably end soon, and I hope it does.
Right.
So it's that hopelessness of just not wanting to really try, because you're just hoping that it ends soon.
Yeah.
Not knowing that you have to make it end.
And how would you describe yourself on the other side of your addiction?
Free, determined, and open.
When you say free, what do you mean? Like free from what?
Free from addiction.
Obviously from the addiction.
Free from the addiction. Free from the constraints that I put on myself. Free from constraints of others that I allowed to be put on myself. Just freedom. Just fucking painting my nails now and shit.
Yeah.
Dyeing my hair. Fucking dressing how I used to dress. Like, this is what Chris used to be like before Chris got married, had kids, and just kind of not tried to blend in.
Yeah.
When I tried to stand out, I was doing great shit. When I tried to blend in, I didn't feel free. I was confined. And so then you do things within that confinement to, it's like somebody in prison starting to use drugs. Like, fuck, I'm in here for 20 years. Fuck it. I'm in here.
I'm in here. Yeah.
You
commit to your circumstances.
Exactly.
And you're right. That's an imprisonment unto itself. Chris, not only do I appreciate you spending the time with me and my super producer P, not only do I appreciate you coming through and sharing your story, but most of all, I appreciate you surviving this episode in your life. because you're truly an asset to not just the comedy community, but I'm certain to the people in your life that love you, myself included. Wow. So I'm really happy that we took this time. And with that being said, what I like to do with my guests is I like to give them the final word. Anything that you want to say, whatever message you want to put out there into the world, whether it has to do with what we just talked about or just something off the top of your head, you get the final word, and the stage is yours.
I'm gonna keep it simple. I'm gonna keep it real simple. And it's one of my favorite thoughts is, if you're gonna do something, do it all the way. If you're gonna get clean all the way. If you're gonna be a comedian, be a comedian. Whatever you're gonna do, commit to that shit. And one of the phrases that I've always stuck with me has come from Redman. And it's, if you gotta be a monkey, be a gorilla.
Hey, that's sound advice. Bend those bars and split those bananas.
Be a monkey, be a silverback. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely, bro. Absolutely. It's Tragic episode number 5 with my highly esteemed guest, Chris Riggins. Thank you so much, bro, for coming through. I appreciate you, man. Everybody else out there, thank you so much for supporting the podcast. Good night and good luck.
Good luck.
Smile, pick up your head. It's alright, it's gonna